Welcome everyone to another Observability Clinic, a day without boundaries with Dynatrace, the practitioner's guide to Dynatrace Grail, AppEngine, AutomationEngine, and more. Michael, we just came back from Vegas a couple of days ago. First of all, what do you think about Vegas, about Perform?
Well, my head is still spinning. Not because of Vegas, but actually because of our Perform announcements there. So
yeah, it was really awesome. As you said, it was great to see many of you. I'm not sure who is on the call today who made it to Vegas, but if you made it to Vegas or not, especially if you didn't make it to Vegas and saw some of the things live, we're here really today to tell you everything that you've missed and everything that will impact your life in a positive way in the coming weeks and months. So my name is Andy Grabner, self-proclaimed DevSecOps activist at Dynatrace, and with me, Michael
Winkler, yes, Senior Principal Product Manager, mostly responsible for our lovely automation solution from a go-to-market perspective, interested in all things DevOps and SRE. Happy to be here. Thanks for having me, Andy.
Yeah, of course. Your team did a great job, like the product team, product marketing, and to making this a success. Now, let's get right into this. We have a lot of ground to cover. By the way, this session is recorded. So if you're live, you can watch this later on. If you see this recorded, you obviously know that it has been recorded. We have a lot of stuff prepared for you. We have a Perform 2023 recap with all of the major announcements. Most important thing for me is we see the announcements in action. And then we'll give you a little bit of a roadmap for you. What's next until all of the stuff we announced and we show you today is actually going to be in your hands. It's what's next until general availability. But let's go into it. Michael, Perform recap.
So Perform 2 weeks ago, so it feels like yesterday, we had an action-packed schedule. And if you haven't seen it live, or if you haven't seen it yet, it's still available on demand. Make sure to check out the main stage announcements. Make sure to check out breakout sessions, customer panels, super interesting stuff there. If we go one click further, just very brief update. We obviously have deep context-rich, full-stack observability, security, and business data, automatically captured, click please, in context and pre-processed. On top of that, we started contextually, click please, with massive parallel processing and graph query technology, which is Grail, which we announced already last year. We have this access by our causal AI for analysis and answers, post-processed, combined, and acted upon, click please, which then effectively, again, another click, powering the automation, orchestration, prevention, and protection that you're looking for, right? And we highlighted here a little bit where we announced and showed today also a little bit enhancements. So we see we have some stuff coming up for traces, metrics, and logs. We talked about security with threats and vulnerabilities enhancements there. We talked about business events. And as mentioned, especially business events and logs have been already released end of last year, but there's still some updates there. We discussed at Perform a semantic dictionary and the ecosystem integrations. We talked a lot about Grail. We talked about Davies AI and enhancements to Smartscape that we're going to cover today as well. We had the new releases around AutomationEngine, which I'm personally very happy about that we can finally talk publicly about it, but also AppEngine and our Dynatrace query language. And then obviously how this all relates to a boundless day for everyone. If we go further, we can jump right into full observability at massive scale. So we already released log management in October last year and business events on powered by Grail in November last year. And Grail, just as a reminder, is our causational data lakehouse with massive parallel processing and context-rich analytics. On top of that, what we announced, we will have metrics powered by Grail GAing in Q2. And on top of that, we have traces, which we will start the preview in Q2.
And I think this, Michael, is just for me the great thing, because what we're doing with Grail, we are breaking down the silos between where all of your observability data traditionally was stored and where other vendors are storing it in separate data lake, in separate data silos, right? And we're bringing everything together in Grail. What started with log and business, now with metrics and traces. One of the things that I want to quickly highlight is DQL, the Dynatrace query language, is the way to access the data. It's extremely powerful. It allows you to query your data. It allows you to connect your data, right? You mentioned that we also have the ability to put in Smartscape, so you can actually query data traversing or kind of walking up and down the Smartscape dependency model. If you want to learn more about DQL, there is already a lot of documentation out there on DQL. I'm also going to record a separate session on DQL. It will be called a practical guide to DQL with one of our product engineers and product managers that was driving DQL. So there will be a lot of things coming to educate you on how to use DQL. If you do me a favor also, if you're familiar maybe with other query languages from other tools out there, there's also in our documentation some great guides on how DQL compares to, let's say, something that Splunk is using or other vendors out there, right? So it should be a very easy transition for you. All right, first topic.
Yes, analytics without boundaries. So the idea is really that we hand over what we have in our Dynatrace platform to everyone. Everyone can be a data scientist. And as Andy has already mentioned, we are going to start a preview in Q2 for Smartscape for DQL. So with the Dynatrace query language, you will be able, as a first time ever, that you can create queries in a multidimensional space and actually traverse dependency graphs to filter your queries. And that works both horizontally and verticals across your full stack. No more data silos, everything in context. So that's really quite breathtaking for everyone. And we're really looking forward to give this into your hands as well. If you go to the next slide, another part is where we talk about notebooks and dashboards. And the idea here is that the dashboard very often is just a snippet of data. And we use notebooks as a way how you can interact with our data through queries, through visuals, and actually you can very easily collaborate with your full team in real time directly in those notebooks. And when you look at the visualizations that you see on the left side, anything that you do there, any filter action that you do is automatically applied to the query at the top as well, making life and getting into DQL a lot easier and very seamless and frictionless for you.
Cool. Michael, should we show it to them live?
Well, I was hoping you would ask that.
Let's do it. And by the way, folks, keep asking questions. I see the first question as I'm switching over, Michael, maybe you can answer it. Log storage and retention for Grail. Can Dynatrace replace a tool, something like Splunk or other tools that are used for log analytics? Maybe you want to answer this quickly while as I'm switching over.
So for application logs, yes, of course. That is the whole idea. When it comes to CM, I don't know if you have the latest update on that. I always know that Splunk is often used for CM as well as application logs. CM, do you know the latest update there, Andy?
I don't know.
Okay. We will get back to that. We also have, if I might spill the beans already, an Ask Me Anything session in a week from now.
Exactly, yeah.
So we'll come prepared there. Summarizing, application logs, yes. CM, we'll get back to you.
Awesome. And as Michael just said, and we will announce it later, for all of the clinics, for all of these videos we're doing right now, we're doing them live. And then always a week later, we're doing an Ask Me Anything session in different time regions so that you can really get your specific questions answered in case we couldn't answer them today. Or if you're watching this and you have questions and you want to have somebody live interacting with to get an answer, then use the Ask Me Anything sessions or reach out to your Dynatrace local team. Right? So what I've done, what I've here is actually, this is Dynatrace, right? This is the new look and feel. We've also announced that we have a new UX model and UX framework that is powering the new UI, the new experience of Dynatrace. First of all, be reminded that all of your existing views that you had, your metrics, your data explorer, your dashboards, your AWS, all of your screens are still there, right? We now just have them grouped into apps that make it easier for you to access, right? And you can search for them. They're also tagged, so it's easier. Today, we want to focus on really the things, though, that are new and that will make your life, I think, much easier. And Michael, the first thing that you said is notebooks, right? I can open it up here, or I just have it pinned here on the left side. So notebooks is a way to, from my perspective, I'm not a data scientist. I don't want to rely on this, right? But there's a lot of data in there, and notebooks really make it easy for me, even as a non-data scientist, to explore data, to play with the data, to actually find the right queries, to get the answers out of the data. What I like about notebooks a lot, however, and you can see this here, production report, Black Friday 2022, notebooks provide not only an exploratory capability. I will show you how to create a notebook from scratch. This is a notebook that I have been shared, or actually I've imported into my environment, which means notebooks, when you're sharing it with somebody, will also automatically come with the data that that whoever built this notebook was seeing. That means this is just a great way to share data, and without having to go back to the raw data and query it all the time, you can just explore everything that this person did when they created that report, right? So here's the production report Black Friday. You can see different visualizations. But let me actually get into a different example. Let me actually start from scratch. If I click on plus, create a new notebook, this is how you start. We give you the option to either add data, add code, which is also interesting. That means you can not only query data, you can also execute TypeScript code. That means you can actually query data from external data sources, annotations. I typically like to start with some templates. So we provide already a couple of templates of most common used queries. So for instance, fetching logs, right? That's obviously very, very simple and easy. So let's fetch all of the logs that are coming in. In my case, I'm getting all the logs here. I can then, if you're familiar with DQL, you obviously have all of your code completion here to really make it easy. What I really like, though, if you're completely new, you can also interact with the UI here, right? You can actually create a summarization. So you can see if I click on it, then automatically I get an overview. And let me maybe remove the limit here of 100 log entries. I want to see a little bit more, right? So here we go. I just said, give me all the logs in the last 2 hours and count it and split it by Dynatrace application, which is context information from Smartscape that is on my logs. And the nice thing is, right, if you're not yet familiar with DQL, you can just interact with the table view here, where you automatically get options to refine the query. I also really like this, where you can you automatically get kind of a histogram overview, and you can then interact and say, hey, I want to get, the top 5 values. I want to put filter on it. I want to have it sorted and so on. Obviously, you can also change. If you can see this, it will automatically update the query itself. The default visualization here is a table. You can change the visualization to then whatever makes sense in this particular use case. Okay. Fetching logs. Let's go back to my table view. That's a good one. I can also add, as I said, what else do we have? Other templates. So let's say a chart, fetching metrics, CPU user from all of your particular hosts. So same thing here. The notebook is smart enough to know that this is time series data. So the default visualization it actually proposes is then your chart. But the same as before, right? You can then interact with the data. You can, either filter on it. So you can, again, this will automatically add a filter to your query. You can obviously then also, if this metric comes from a host, from a service, from an application, directly jump to your screen that you're used to, right? Your host screen, your services screen, whatever screen it is. Raw view is as well, like behind the scenes, we always have raw data. That means you can massage this data as you like. The reason why I think this is interesting, you can actually see how the data is coming back from DQL, which then also gives you more insights into how the results are structured. If you want to build your own code on top of it, which brings me to the next thing, you can actually see what type of data comes back, and you can write code that is then massaging the data before it then gets output on the screen, right? So templates, code, as I'm just saying here, right? Run a query, return time series of fetch external data, just using one of these examples. What we also announced is a runtime where you can, as I said, run your own custom logic in the context, in this case, of that notebook. That means you can run any type of TypeScript. You have the full power of TypeScript, even accessing external data. And I'll show you an example in a little bit where you can pull in data from an external source. Let's say, I don't know, stock information or pricing information of your hosts. And then you can use this, combine it with the data that Dynatrace has, and then, create new data models that allow you to answer questions that you couldn't do before, right? And you can do this all within this particular notebook. Let me show you quickly one of the notebooks that I've also borrowed from one of our colleagues. They did this presentation at Perform and one of the breakouts. Really worth pointing it out. We have it later as a reference in the slides. What they really did here is they walked through the complete scenario of finding out not only how many hours on EC2 they were consuming per team. You can see here they fetched metrics, EC2 hours by a particular team. They kind of started building out this notebook in an exploratory way, where they then additionally queried information about costs from an AWS API, costs per EC2 instance. And then they were combining this data in the end, where they could then see not only how many hours they consume, but what the total costs were for each particular team. And this is a great way to kind of start exploring with the data. You can, as I said, add queries, add your code to fetch external data or massage data that is on here. You can add annotations, right? You can always add an annotation through Markdown and just add additional information. And then I can share it, right? Mike, I could share this with you, and then you can work on the same data. I can export it, and you can export it in your environment. And with the export comes the data itself. So that means you can actually work on it without having to then necessarily query my raw data, which is really cool. Notebooks. I think there's a couple of other things that I could show, but I want to make sure we're not missing out on time. We're already 18 minutes in. Let me quickly go to dashboards. So this is notebooks. You can always then either from a notebook, if you have charts, right? You can from here. You could open this in a dashboard if you want to convert this to a dashboard. That's possible. So if you are happy with your result in the notebook because you've explored the data and you know this is what you want for maybe reporting purposes, then you can edit and open this as it shows here, right? For instance, in a dashboard or just in the query view. I'll just show you, go over to my dashboard view in general. So similar to my notebooks, what I had, here are some dashboards, same thing. I imported those, but the difference now from dashboards to notebooks, if I go back to a little larger time frame, dashboards always query live data. That means when you refresh it, or when the dashboard refreshes, it always queries the data. Notebooks, it only refreshes the data in the section when you really say, I want to refresh it, right? So I think that's a big difference. What's also really cool on the dashboards that we have here, you may see this, you can also define variables. This was something that has been asked for a long time. That means you can build dashboards, you can create variables. Variables can actually be either a static list coming from a CSV, it can come from code. That means you can actually query the values for variables from code, or it can come from another query. So you can say, I want to get all the list of hosts that I get from Dynatrace, from logs, or from metrics, or from Smartscape, and then use it as a variable. And then you can use this variable on your individual queries. So that means, right, if you see here, I have log level alert, and if I now go also to error, then all the queries will be live updated with this particular information, including all of these log levels. Okay? So I think that's pretty powerful. Again, you can share dashboards, obviously, with your colleagues. Just remember, when you share it and they open it, it's always live data. That's the difference between dashboards and notebooks. And one thing that I wanted to show you, because I was really excited, but I guess I skipped over it. The last thing that I want to highlight, I need to go back to notebooks. Davis forecast, because one of our colleagues, Wolfgang Baer, he also did a great breakout session on some of the new capabilities. We have forecasting capabilities. So in the notebooks, if you're looking at time series data, you can ask Davis to forecast future data, right? So whatever data you have, you obviously know that we have the anomaly detection with the multidimensional baselining, but now we also give you a forecasting capability where on a dashboard or on a notebook, sorry, I still have to get used to the terminology on notebooks, you can also enable forecasting for metrics. And I think this is also just extremely powerful, right? All right. Mike, before I hand it back to you, anything that I missed on notebooks and dashboards? At least for a quick overview?
I think we're good.
Very good. Okay, now I just want to make sure because there's so many things, and I'm just scratching the surface, right? But the intention of today is really to give you an overview. If you want to learn more, there's two great opportunities. A, watch the keynotes, the main stage, and these breakout sessions that I'm highlighting here. You can go to dynatrace.com, perform on demand, and watch these sessions. All of them are excellent. The keynote, the main stage, obviously, where we made the major announcements, explaining a lot of the use cases and why we did it. And then the breakouts that dig deeper into individual things, like from Wolfgang, the forecasting, or from Paul and Philip, really they did a great job in explaining notebooks and dashboards. Right? And this is not enough, right? If this is not enough, we also this is just the first clinic that we do. If you want to learn more about notebooks and dashboards, on the 23rd of March, we're doing another session like this live, where we really focus on dashboards, notebooks, and DQL, and go a little bit deeper. We bring in the product experts for these areas, and then cover these topics. All right, so I think this was the first part. Mike?
Sounds good.
Item, yeah?
Yes. So getting to my home turf, automation without boundaries. Everyone can automate to reduce toil. The idea here really is that we know that the Dynatrace platform now covers observability, security, and business data and insights at massive scale, thanks to Grail. And we use a lot of different ingest sources, not just our one agent. And we use that to sense. We have Davis and Smartscape, our topology, to think and combine it with causal AI. And then out of that, a lot of customers always ask, well, you already know that I need to restart a service. Why do you wake me up at 2 a.m., right? And for that, we announced, and it will be live G8 in Q2, AutomationEngine, providing intelligent automation for observability, security, and business data. And that's covering automation in visual workflows. So you can do workflow automation, but also cloud native or as code. On top of that, we are working on a very broad ecosystem of meaningful integrations and out-of-the-box actions that you can use across your ecosystem, across your environment. And that's not just connectivity from SaaS to SaaS, but also connectivity into your on-prem environment. For example, if you're running Jira on-prem and not Jira SaaS, we can interact with your Jira on-prem using our secure gateways there. Mm-hmm. And then last but not least, very important here is, since we are an observability and security platform, a software intelligence platform, we have a feedback loop. We know what happened once something has been done by a different tool, or if something was done by Dynatrace itself. And we can use that in a feedback loop directly to optimize continuously. And that allows for a lot of different use cases, right? So we can do targeted notification and collaboration, actually. It's more than just fire and forget of a problem. Mm-hmm. We can actually inform the right people at the right time with the right information. We have security automation when detecting vulnerabilities or threats. We have site reliability or delivery orchestration use cases that we can do based on observability, always with observability and security in the driver's seat. And pretty much any real-time data-driven automation that you can think of, we can automatically act upon it based on Dynatrace provided answers. And as I already mentioned, as everything in Dynatrace, all of this is available as code as well.
Really cool. And I'm really excited now to, again, be able to show how this looks live. So the demo that I want to show now, let me switch over again. By the way, Michael, I think you have an eye. I saw you had an eye on the chat. Anything else that came in that we just let me know?
I answered it with text. I hope we're good.
Perfect. Yeah, we'll have some more dedicated time in the end. And as I said, we will then have the Ask Me Anythings as well in a week, and you can always reach us. So, okay, workflows. So same thing, right? I just remember how I navigate. You can obviously always go back to your start screen. But we did notebooks and dashboards earlier. Now I'm looking into workflows. So when I click on workflows, I already see that a lot of my colleagues, including you, Michael, I saw some of your workflows there as well, have already been created. I want to first show you a quick workflow on that also a session I want to highlight later on that they did at Perform. It was a really cool workflow around vulnerability reporting and escalation. So what you actually see here is a workflow that you can visually click together, visually configure. Workflows can be triggered by an event, can be, right? And like in this case, it is a security problem event. You can trigger a workflow by an event. You can trigger it through a timer. You can trigger it through an API or manually, right? This is the way you can trigger workflows. And then a workflow, like in this case, right, can take different paths. You can see here the green arrows. I hope you can see the green, right? You can basically say which way should the workflow take in case the previous step failed or succeeded. You can even have things like retries. You can have things like obviously timeouts if they take too long. So this is a really powerful workflow engine that we have here. And the use case that these guys created, and I can highly recommend because they built the whole thing from scratch in that breakout, is they started from scratch and building an end-to-end use case that is creating and escalating critical security issues to the right people, right? Depending on the escalation level, they either send emails, they create Jira tickets, or they're sending notifications to Slack, to the responsible teams. Now, this is a finished workflow, but let me actually go back and let's create a workflow from scratch. New workflow. I want to do a very simple one. So as I said, it always starts with the trigger event. As I said, event, either any type of event where you can query events that Dynatrace has in Grail. At Davis, so as you can see here, right, this is the query where you can say, like we saw earlier, for let's say a business event or a security event.
Again, DQL syntax.
DQL syntax, exactly. Yeah, thank you. It could also be a Davis event trigger. So you could say whenever, like a CPU saturation is an example, or any type of Davis event, availability, custom alerts, any type of event can trigger it. And you can also specify whether the workflow should be called only during event open or also close. What I want to do now, also on a problem, obviously, then you got the scheduled and the on-demand. Let me do a quick on-demand one. If you do on-demand, you also get the information on how you can trigger it on demand, because one way is to click on run here, but obviously you may want to trigger this workflow from outside, from your automation. That would be an option. So I said on demand. Now I can click on, I want to add a task. You can see here, as I click on add new task, you get on the right side a long list of actions. So these are all actions that come with Dynatrace that are already enabled on my environment. And you can see here the list is pretty long. A lot of different things that we have in our repertoire in connecting all of the different tools that you have with our workflows. Now the list can be extended. We will talk about Dynatrace apps later on. When you build an app, or a partner builds an app, or we build an app can also expose an action, which means you can use it in a workflow as well. I want to do something very simple. I want to use DQL again as an action. And I want to just copy and paste something here. So let's assume the very simplest automation use case. I want to, let me double check here. I have a little cheat sheet here. I want to query the number of logs split by log level. So I want to give this a meaningful name, query log count by log level. So if I also give it a good name, logs by log level, and I call this Andy, so that others know who actually, that they know I'm doing this right now. So I have my first action. If I run the execution, right, then the workflow runs. It's just a simple step. Doesn't do a whole lot. It executes my query, and then it comes back with 8 results. Now what I want to do is I want to edit the workflow, because what I really want to do is I want, once the result comes back, I want to, for instance, send a Slack message, right? So we have a Slack integration where I can now say I have like already some Slack connections specified. And I just need to double check what was my welcome test. Exactly, welcome test. So the Slack channel I can send stuff to. And then I can put in a little bit of Slack magic. Right? So basically, I'm just specifying the Slack message here. And I have different options here, but I want to save. Very simple. So now what I can do, I can run my workflow that is querying the number of logs by log level, and voila, I get the information in Slack. Now this was obviously boring because I clicked it manually, but if I, for instance, want to have a report, or every day in the morning when I come in, I can obviously change the trigger, right? And I can change it to something like, right, if I change the trigger, I can say I want to run this on a schedule, or I want to trigger this by an event. So maybe if Dynatrace detects an increase in error logs or any other event, I want to run this workflow that immediately gives me the information that I need in my Slack channel. Right? And this is just a start. As I said, you can add any type of tasks that you want here. We'll come back to this in a second. You can run just HTTP calls. You can run, again, JavaScript. Right? Again, same TypeScript that we've seen earlier in the notebooks. What's also really nice, you can define conditions, so you can basically do a basic branching. So you can say on error or canceled, you want to run this, and on, if I add another branch here, I can say on success to A, on error to this. There's a lot of different options. Everything is visual, but I think Mikey also mentioned this. It's not just visually creating workflows, but we can also do this through code. And so all of this that you see here can be just fully configured as configuration as code as well. Cool. So this was my quick discard the changes. Yeah, let me go back to the workflows. Is there anything else I wanted to show here? I think for now, I'm good. As you can see, there's a lot of different use cases that we have. The critical vulnerability detection, CPU saturation. This is something, Michael, that you built. I think you were triggering a workflow based on when a CPU is saturated. And we'll come back to some of the others in a minute. But for workflows, that's the quick overview. Want to go back because we want to make sure we cover everything else that we have. If you want to learn more, check out the main stage. It was called Any Use Case Fully Automated Without Boundaries. And then I can really highlight 2 sessions, the one with Christopher and with Andreas, who did the security use case that I mentioned earlier. So a security vulnerability comes in and then looks at additional data, how severe it is, and then depending on that, decide whether to create a Jira ticket, send an email or a Slack message. So this is a great one. And then, Mike, I also give you a plug for one of your sessions.
Yes, so me and Seth together, we covered answer-driven automation from a DevOps and SRE perspective, where we went into a lot of different workflows that you could set up to make your DevOps platform engineering and SRE life a lot easier. So give it a look.
Perfect, yeah. And then last but not least, we also have a deep dive session on automation without boundaries on April 13th. This is actually where we will have the lead engineer, Christopher, who also did the breakout, will cover workflows. And I just see a question coming in, and maybe I'll just quickly take this. Mike is asking, is JavaScript the only option for creating custom integrations for workflow? It's not the only option, because as you've seen earlier, you can also just execute HTTP calls. And the nice thing, and Michael, I think you mentioned that we can not only make HTTP calls to public available APIs, but we have what we call Edge Connect. I think that's what it's called, right?
Yes.
We have Edge Connect, where you can also install kind of like a proxy within your environment. So we can also call APIs behind your firewall. Like a classical thing would be executing, triggering a Jenkins workflow, or triggering any type of tool internally that you have, or an Ansible Tower script or something like this. Yeah. Yeah.
But Mike's question actually is a perfect segue
yeah.
to the next part that we want to talk about, right, Andy?
Yeah. What is it?
So every use case without boundaries, everyone can extend Dynatrace. And what that actually means is we are also releasing in Q2 our AppEngine, which means that you have access to the full Dynatrace platform to add your own custom logic, your own custom use cases. No more bolted on logic, no API, no lacking context. You can really use what we ourselves use as well, and our engineers use, to build based on Dynatrace platform your own applications. And that, as to close the loop again to Mike's question, you can build apps that define your own workflow actions. So if you have an in-house built tool that you want to automate as well with Dynatrace, you can just write your own workflow actions there. You can write your own intents and your completely own application, ingesting data, analyzing data, using Davis pinpointedly, etc. Again, here come.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, I think this is. I think the great. What you said is, you can extend Dynatrace by building apps the same way as we as Dynatrace build apps. Instead of you having to build something external where you pull data out of Dynatrace and then do some magic because we don't support a certain use case, you can now build an app that runs in the platform natively next to the data. And the data is kind of, I think that they call it like the data is the gravity point, right? We want to make sure that the logic gets to the data instead of extracting all the data, a lot of costs, a lot of transfer, a lot of time, and then process it. So we give you the opportunity to extend Dynatrace in the same ways we are doing it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Just before heading into this slide a little bit more, there was a question from Sasha as well regarding Java CPU saturation case. If we could have a look at the suspicious threats and then from there do the analysis. I don't know enough about that. I don't know, Andy, if you know, but if we have suspicious threats already available, we can query it with DQL and then you can use it in the workflows.
Yeah,
because
because suspicious threats, as far, and I might also not be the full expert here, but it's we are detecting suspicious threats, and it would then be a metric. And so if we detect suspicious threats on a certain JVM, then you can also trigger a workflow based on that. That means you can trigger a workflow and say, hey, we have suspicious threats, either that are long running, that are constantly recycling. And then based on this event, because in the end, this is an event for Dynatrace, you can trigger a workflow. And in that workflow, you can capture maybe more information about that process. Who is the owner of that process? We also announced an ownership capability at Perform, which we don't talk, actually, I think we don't cover a whole lot today, but I'll try to fit it in. But you could run a workflow that says, hey, who is the owner of this app that has a suspicious activity? Give me that owner, and then send that owner the information about that process with a link to the dashboard or to that particular process view. Yeah. So let's see this in action as well. Good, Michael?
Yes, I'm good.
Yeah.
I mean, I could spend some more time on the previous slide, but I think looking at the time, at the clock,
yeah,
it's difficult to fit 2 weeks of 2 days of announcements into 1 hour.
Yeah, I know.
With demos.
I know. And so let's do this. I want to quickly show the Site Reliability Guardian as one of the apps that we have built, and we've also announced at Perform, because it's a very key component to everything we've been doing over the last couple of years for site reliability engineering and DevOps engineers. And I want to show you how this looks like in a workflow. So let me switch back over to my environment. So first of all, the Site Reliability Guardian, right? So again, to come back to the point that we just made, this is an app that we built using the same AppEngine framework to build an app like what you can do. You can build your own app that looks exactly like this and does the same thing if you want to, right? Or bring in your own logic. Obviously, we as Dynatrace, we will focus on core use cases that we want to bring to everybody in the platform. We will have partners that build apps, and we encourage you as customers and users to also build your apps that you can then use on your environment, that you can then also potentially share to the greater marketplace that we have in Dynatrace, because we do have a marketplace for apps. So what I want to show here, because this is a topic that Mike, your team and I, we've been driving this for quite a while. It was heavily inspired by the work we did over the last years on our open source project Captain, where we had SLO-based quality gates, which then came into Dynatrace as cloud automation. Now what we have is the ability to define a guardian. A guardian really means if you have an app, if you have a service, if you're responsible for a piece of your infrastructure, then you can ask Dynatrace, please, I want you to be my guardian. I want you to have an eye on the key SLO service level objectives of that particular piece I'm responsible for. And here I have a guardian specified and defined for search, which is one of the features. And as you can see here, right, I can scroll down. Whoever specified that guardian said success rate is important, failure rate is important, search result and the failure rate, the 5XX are important. So similar to what we had with quality gates, you specify your SLIs. Behind the scenes, what are SLIs? They're really queries. So you specify, again, DQL, which means you're no longer just constrained to metrics, but you have the full range of data that Dynatrace has in DQL, the full power of DQL. So that data will be queried and it will be analyzed against the thresholds, the guardrails that you specify. And you can then run the guardian, and every time it runs, right, it actually shows you here, when did the guardian, when was it executed, what was the result? As you can see here, I can click in the timeline view on top and then it shows me for that particular run, what was the result. If you have multiple runs in a similar time frame, right? We are kind of putting that together. There will be different visualizations also coming up based on some early feedback that we've received. But the point is, you can define this guardian, and if you want to, right, you can obviously run a validation from here. But much better is, now coming back to workflows, if I go back to my workflows again, then I think it was Johannes who created it. Yeah, here we go. Mm-hmm. There's the cards reliability evaluation. So Johannes created a workflow that gets triggered when somebody deploys a new version of cards in production. So this workflow is triggered if an event comes in that is sent, let's say, by your Jenkins, your GitLab, your Argo, right? Whatever it is, we detect the new deployment. The deployment in Dynatrace speak is just an event with some metadata. So in this case, it's an event where it says cards was deployed into production. And what Johannes then did is that every time we deploy a new build, the first thing we want to do, we actually want to run a validation. You can see here from the logo, this is the logo of the Site Reliability Guardian, because this is an app that is also making itself available to be triggered by a workflow. Coming back to Mike, who asked the question, you can build your own apps, your own use cases. You can either provide a UI, you can provide backend logic. You can also provide that backend logic through an action. So you have the full capability that we have as Dynatrace, right? So in this case, this triggers whenever a new deployment happens, that the validation gets triggered. Then what's happening? They built a little bit of code of deriving ownership information, and depending then on the outcome of the result, right? If it's passed, warning, or failed, then they're sending different types of messages into Slack, notifying people that deployed, the owner data deployment happened, that the automated evaluation happened with the final result. And I think this is actually sending it to the same Slack connection that I used earlier. So if I go back here, you can see here the site reliability notifications. So every half an hour, there's a build happening, and every half an hour, that workflow triggers in, does the evaluation, and sends me the notification in my case in Slack. If you're not using Slack, if you're using something else, you can send it to whatever tool you have. You can create a Jira ticket. You can, right? You have the full flexibility of our automation engine. And this is the true powerful thing, what I like about what I like so much about it.
What I just want to add here, unless you're not done.
No, go ahead.
What I like to add here is, by providing these workflows then out of the box, which are provisioned automatically with every Guardian, we also have this option that you can very simply just extend it, right? So here now it's for release validation, but you could use it for progressive delivery orchestration. You could use it for pinpointed feature releasing, etc. Like, the possibilities are quite endless here.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And I see some other questions coming in. Do you want to take them on from Günther?
I will answer it live, but I would do that when we get to the next part.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, awesome. So yeah, the point here really is, right, that you have, coming back to workflows. The workflows are really allowing you to do data-driven automation, and in that automation, you truly can do whatever you want. Right? Pull in data, massage data, run applications, trigger applications that we build, partners build, or you yourself build. And I'm pretty sure the Site Reliability Guardian will be its own topic in a couple of weeks, because I will doing a couple of additional sessions. This on its own is going to be, I think, a major game changer for most of you that are responsible for reliability of your apps and services. But we want to just show you, we're just building apps like you would do as well. All right.
Goodie.
Want to learn more? This was day 2, main stage, a day without boundaries, where they really showed everything that is possible. Also, a lot of new cool use cases on other apps that have been built. Something that is fresh on my mind was the carbon footprint app. There was an app around Salesforce monitoring. There was so many different apps that they already announced and showed on what's possible and what is being built. And then I really can highlight also these 2 sessions, one with Holger and Paul, and then the other one with Mike and Wolfgang, also actually showing off the Site Reliability Guardian in detail. Yeah. And what else is there? Want to learn more about AppEngine? Yeah, there will be a dedicated session on AppEngine, how you can build your own apps, how all this works. This will be May 17th. Now, last stretch before we take the time for the final questions, the roadmap to GA. Michael.
Yes. So if you go to the next slide, we see availability of what you've seen today here will be pending on regional availability. We are going to all major hyperscalers, AWS, Microsoft Azure, Google Cloud Platform, etc. over the course of the year. And with Q2, we will already be available in AWS in a lot of different regions. Making use of it, and now actually answering the question from Günther, it is not similar to what we had with this tectonic shift from AppMon to Dynatrace. It will be an evolutionary product change, meaning as soon as Grail is available, Grail, AppEngine, AutomationEngine is available in your region, your tenants, your environments would automatically already send data there. And as soon as you want to use it, we can unlock it for you. You can unlock it as a Dynatrace admin can unlock it for the end users. And then you can choose between both UIs, right? If you switch to the new UI, there is a transition period for every end user separately. For this transition, then all the favorites that are pinned on the burger menu that we currently have is already pinned in the new UI as well. You've seen it already when Andy did the first look and feel comparison for the UI itself. All of the things, like the problems, the services, all of this is already there. and you can just use that. You don't have to switch between UIs or anything. On top of that, the new UI obviously then also has all of these new apps and applications. So it will be super easy to transition to the new UI, and it is not a new product, right? It is, it's new product features. Let me rephrase that. It's new features, new value, new capabilities for you, but it's still Dynatrace. You don't have to migrate your product. It's not like AppMon and Dynatrace.
Mm-hmm. Cool.
Good.
Michael, I think
yes,
a lot of stuff we covered.
Yeah, it's 9 minutes to spare, and we're back to this beautiful screen. A lot of different announcements that were done in 2 days, which we squeezed into 1 hour. I'm really looking forward to the Observability Clinics, which I will join as a listener at least, where we go more into detail on the different topics. And yeah, I hope it was very interesting. And back to you, Andy.
Yeah, and this also leaves me with, again, an overview of all of the upcoming sessions that we do. Now, be reminded, these sessions will be listed on the Dynatrace webinar page, so you can join us live. We will also promote them as we get closer on our different social media channels. If you cannot make them live, then all of these, as always, will also be available for on-demand. So register for them, get them on demand. They will also eventually find its way to YouTube and also to Dynatrace University. But this is an overview. Today, we started with a day without boundaries, a quick overview of everything we announced. Next one is going to be focusing more on dashboards, notebooks, and DQL. We bring in the experts for that. In the middle, at the end of March, this will just be recorded. I'll push it out. We'll push it out on University and YouTube, a practical guide to DQL. And then we follow up with automation and then how you build your own apps. And what's very important, every week after one of these live sessions, stay tuned. We will do a live Ask Me Anything where we give you a dedicated hour with our product experts in the different time regions. So there will be, for every major time zone or region, there will be an Ask Me Anything always a week after these live sessions. So you can digest a little bit what you heard today and then have your questions answered. Or if you're watching this a day or two later, the recording, then you still give you a chance to ask live questions. Good. With this, I think we want to use the next 5 minutes that we still have for any question we can answer now. So folks, if you do have any more questions that Mike hasn't already answered, because you were really amazing with the chat, you answered all of the questions that came in so far.
I hope so.
Yeah. Then let us know. And I'm here, right? I still have my environment open. If you want me to do anything, let us know. Maybe one thing we could show, right? You mentioned the problem. So these are all apps. So that means every core capability, everything is still there, right? For these features that we haven't yet, let's say, converted over to the new look and feel. It is all available here in the new UI. So that means everything, I think this might be also, there's no migration. This is an evolution. You automatically get the new capabilities we showed you today in the new UI. And we don't take anything away from you. We just give you a lot of stuff. Yeah. So I guess the recording will be available for us to watch later. Yes, you can. You will get an email as you have registered as a reminder once the on-demand will be available for you because you registered. And in a couple of days, the recording will also be available on YouTube and Dynatrace University.
We just got the question on managed. Mm-hmm. This updates, including the UI, will be available to SaaS. So we're covering here cloud complexity, and this is intended for a SaaS platform.
Exactly. And I think if you, we're doing a lot of things here that are possible because we can leverage the flexibility and the scale that the cloud providers give us. And this is why we also decided to leverage this, and this is what we bring to SaaS. Anything else? Yeah, the recording will be available. We already said that. Let's see what else is there. Let us know if we've answered everything, or if there's anything.
I think we covered everything so far, either live or I typed a quick text.
Yeah, cool.
But I think we covered most of it live anyways.
Yeah. Awesome. Then I would say, Michael, thank you so much.
Thank you.
And it's the next big new era. As we said at Perform, this was the biggest announcements we ever made in our history of the company, the biggest major evolutionary shift, making everybody enabling everyone to become a data scientist, a data automation expert, and really do more with the data that you have, right where the data is. And I think this is the important piece. Yeah. Cool. If you want to follow up with us, obviously you have our names, but if you have more questions, I can just repeat myself. There will be many, many dedicated sessions to educate you on what's coming. And also feel free to reach out to your local Dynatrace team. Good. With this, I want to say tschüss, bye-bye.
Servus, danke.
Servus.
Thank you.
Bye.